Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts.
Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you.
Oh my goodness. So all of this love is not cutting into my time, I want you to know. I have 9 weeks worth of sermons kind of stored up in here. Look out. I have a really good joke. I'm not going to cut it. John Murphy went to the doctor. He wasn't feeling well. The doctor ran some tests and said, "John, I can see that there's a little bit of an issue with your heart. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give you these tablets, and you take these tablets, and they're going to make things right." And John said, "Do I take them every day, doctor?" And he said, "No, you take it on a Monday, you skip Tuesday, take it on a Wednesday, you skip Thursday, and so on. You get it, John?" John said, "Oh, yeah." 2 or 3 weeks later, the doctor was walking in the village, and he saw John's wife. He said, "Mrs. Murphy, how is John getting along?" And she said, "Oh, he died, heart attack." And he said, "Oh, I'm so surprised. I'm so sorry. I really thought those tablets would do the trick." And she said, "Well, the tablets were absolutely fine. You rest your mind about it. It was the skipping that killed him." You get it? Thank you. I've searched for 2 months for that joke and worked on that Irish accent. So. I have some pictures that I want to share with you from my sabbatical in Connemara, Ireland. Just a few. I took thousands. Isn't that amazing? It's in Connemara National Park. You can go to the next one. They really do call it the Emerald Isle for a reason. Oh, there are a few selfies in here. Yeah, just to prove that I was there, and these are not postcards. Just incredibly beautiful. I did find the geological history. That part right there is, Ireland actually is half of Europe and half North America. In millions and millions of years ago, the tectonic plates came together and created this beautiful island. And this ridge goes down the central from the southwest to the northeast, and that's where these mountains are. We can go to the next one. And this is Kylemore Abbey, a beautiful, beautiful castle, and go to the next one. Oh, this is the long room in the library, the old library at Trinity College in Dublin, and it's just incredible. It's been used in movies, just amazing. And I think I have one more picture. Oh, 2 more. The St. Patrick's Cathedral in Dublin, beautiful. I mean, we just have nothing of this age, here in this country. It's just, you feel the depth of time. But I love this picture. The little peninsula where I was staying in a cottage, it was an hour from a grocery store by car. It was remote. But it's on a tiny little peninsula, and it was surrounded by the sea on 3 sides, and usually windy and some rain. But on this day, a couple of weeks before I came home, the sea was like glass, and I took these photographs of the clouds reflected in the water. And it reminded me of that old spiritual saying we get from the Hermetic tradition that as above, so below. Isn't that beautiful? Okay, that's it. Enough of my sabbatical talk. I'll share more pictures on social media and stuff, but I have to say thank you. Thank you to our leadership, to the board of directors, to our staff, our ministers, to the volunteers, to your faithful support. It is necessary, and I can't explain exactly why. When I was interviewing for this job 7 years ago, 2 years before Reverend Howard left, and I was negotiating a contract. I had never been a pastor of a church before. I had no idea. So I reached out to some friends and colleagues, and I asked them, what do I ask for? And they all said, this time away, it's important. You're going to need a sabbatical. And so we worked out the details of that. Thank you. I'm looking over at Marilyn Huglin. She was our board president, and Trey Yates. I saw Trey here too. He was also board president during that period of creating that. So they kind of left it with you, Cindy, whatever they created, all that work. But it has been transformative, just transformative. I did some sightseeing, and I had a few friends come to visit. But mostly, it was just me in that tiny little cottage and walking the roads in this very remote, very unpopulated area, just filled with God's glory and beauty. And I spent the afternoons writing and discovering so much about myself and my journey. And I'm just happy to report that I'm committed. I'm ready to come back. I was back. I'm here. That it's a little bit of a question, I think, naturally at a sabbatical time after 5 years. It's like, is this mine to continue doing? Maybe someone else should come in and take this? If I've done what I needed to do. There's a joke in college football coaching. They say you never want to be the guy after the guy. You want to be the guy after the guy after the guy. And so, but I'm the guy after the guy, right? After 34 years of service here at Howard Caesar. And I've really made my peace with that. If I am a transitional leader so that we can, move things and so we're ready for the next person. But I leave that all up to God, and I leave that all up to you, board. And I leave that all up to you, the community. I work for you. And as long as you feel that I'm the right leader for this community, I'm here. Up until a point. I will retire at some point, I promise. All right, enough of that. Thank you for recognizing my 5th anniversary. I had forgotten about that, but that is exactly right. So today, it also is the 21st anniversary of the horrible events of 9/11. And I'm sure most of us remember where we were when that day occurred, with the bombings in New York, or the planes flying into the Twin Towers, also in Pennsylvania, and the Pentagon. Just horrific, just absolutely horrific experience. And what we realize now is that children that weren't even born then are now old enough to drink. I know, time just keeps moving on. So I wanted, and I've written this talk about 9 times, because I have a pattern where I work on my sermon as I'm walking or working out or whatever I'm thinking about, and that's just part of my week. I think about what I want to share with you, and then not being here for these weeks, I exaggerate, about 4 weeks ago I started looking at this and started writing the things I wanted to share, and almost none of it is here. Because what I realized, there's something about the process of creating these messages that I like to be in what's happening in this moment, even though I created this title and this description months ago. And what's really alive for me today is us, this community. The very concept of spiritual community as a container of spiritual transformation. I'm not kidding. I wouldn't have made it without spiritual community. Without people that would hold me in consciousness as I didn't remember the truth of who I was, so they knew it for me. And people would share, as we say in the 12-step communities, they would share their experience, their strength, their hope. Not offering advice or telling me what to do, just holding that space that, yes, Michael, you too have the power of God within you. There's a light in you, unique and irreplaceable and unrepeatable. People told me that when I couldn't see it. And somewhere in there, it activated my faith. And I just kept saying yes and walking to the next step and to the next and to the next. And boy, I had no idea it would end up here. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. So I thought I'd like to begin, and I'm going to frame the rest of my message today around our values. That we created these new guiding words, our purpose and value statements, 4 or 5 years ago. And our first one is our being statement. Can we read this together? Being. We live from our oneness with God and each other, experiencing abundance and connection with all life. Experiencing abundance and connection with all life. This really is our deepest theological statement. There is only one life. This word oneness, it's not just a nice word, it's a worldview. It's a philosophical understanding of the nature of reality. We are a non-dualistic Christian tradition, very unusual. Almost all of the Western religious traditions are dualistic. There is good and there is evil, and they are warring for all eternity, or something like that. And you're going to go to heaven or you're going to go to hell. Those are the kinds of that just divided way of thinking. Good, evil. That's dualism. And that's the way not just Christianity, Judaism, Islam, and other religions too. That's the worldview, that's the lens through which People for millennia. Most of the world sees it that way, but not us. That here, in this deepest of our hearts, I've said it before, we're a Christian church with a Hindu soul. This is the part of us that we are more aligned with Buddhism and Hinduism, in that we understand that reality is one power, one presence, and we're all a part of it. That we are unique and irreplaceable, unrepeatable expressions of God's own being, and we cannot be separate from it. And a little bit later, I'm going to share a teaching from Jesus of Nazareth, where I believe that Jesus was, too, a non-dual teacher. That, he didn't talk about, he said, it's get out of the judgment, for when you're judging, you're being judged, because it's one energy, it's one life, it's reciprocal. We live in a universe of reciprocity. And so the power of these teachings, which the Fillmores did not create, they discovered and brought to a new way to their generation 103 years ago, not that long after this movement was started, about 20 years. Bertha Miller had been studying Unity Correspondence course in Kansas. She moved here to the Heights on Rutland Street, I believe. And she was so excited by this teaching of oneness that she started inviting her neighbors, and that's the birth of this community. For 103 years, people in this community have been gathering around this teaching. And because what it says is we live from our oneness. What does that mean? That means all of our words, our thoughts, our intentions, and our actions come from this perspective. There is no other. There is no enemy. That we are all in this together. And people tease us about it. Oh, that love everybody church, like it's this airy-fairy, kind of lighter-than-air Pollyanna teaching. Are you kidding me? This stuff is hard. Have you not paid attention to what's going on in the world? To try and live from love in this day and age? Man, it's much easier to judge and condemn. Amen? Sometimes we should just try it again, just see if maybe we were wrong about this oneness thing. Let's go back to judgment and condemnation. Maybe that'll work for us. No, I'm kidding. I don't believe that. Let's go to our next statement. And here's the answer, because you know what I've been saying. Sure, it's great to think about us all being one and we're all part of God. Well, then why are people so rotten? Why do I struggle? Because we don't fully know and embody the truth of our being. So our second statement of value is this. Let's read it together. Becoming. Through spiritual practice and through grace, we heal and grow, revealing the Christ within. Just breathe into that for a second. You are whole. There is nothing missing in you. There is nothing inadequate about your essence. That word, the Christ, it's a Greek word, Christos, which means the anointed one. It wasn't Jesus' last name. You know that, right? The Christ. And Jesus, as we teach here in Unity, is our way shower, our elder brother, the one who said, "Greater things shall they do who come after me." Those who step into the opportunity and the responsibility of knowing our oneness. That we have to be different. We can't fall back into those patterns of judgment and condemnation. That we must lift our consciousness. And it takes work, so that's why we put the first line there, through spiritual practice. Thank God it's practice and not perfection. Because I'm still figuring it out. I still struggle. I still have corners of my own belief system where I come up against my own belief in my inadequacy. It happens. I was at the Big Sky Retreat. Mike, who was up here, teaches the first graders. He was there with his beautiful wife, Beth, and there were about 8 or 10 of us there at the retreat last week. And I was doing my own process, continuing to. I was taking the workshops. I was looking at my own fear, my own false beliefs, so that I can continue to release. Michael Beckwith says that everything in our spiritual growth is subtractive. You get it? We've got stuff in the way. We don't need anything added to us. We have wrong ideas and beliefs about who we are and who God is and what people are. And so we have to practice. Our primary practice is being prayer and meditation. We also do affirmation and denial. Study is a spiritual practice. Service, giving of your time, your talent, your treasure into community, that's all practice. And as we practice, we start listening to ourselves in that subconscious mind. We start hearing those affirmations, and the old tapes of unconscious belief begin to unwind. Did I say tapes? We're in a digital age. I need a new metaphor for that. The old files begin to rewrite themselves more in alignment with the truth of our being. There's another thing that we say in AA. We're not bad people getting good. We're sick people getting well. And that's really what we're talking about. Our consciousness is ill. We're good. At core, at essence, we are good. We're made in the image and likeness of God. But it's our belief system needs some healing. That's why we do this. We heal and grow. Let's go to our third one. And this is where I want to focus for the remainder of my time today. Belonging. Let's read this together. Belonging. We create a spiritual home for all people, knowing that we are one body and that we belong to each other. I'm going to dive into a controversy alive in our world right now, and I just invite you to breathe and come with me. The pronunciation of the word pecan can be pecan, 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 or the worst, pecan, which is how they pronounce it in Ireland. I love the Irish people. They are the friendliest, most welcoming, kind people I've ever met, but when they say that word, it's wrong. Pecan? Come on. You know, Trevor Noah, the comedian, host of The Daily Show, he did a thing in his stand-up years ago. He's from South Africa, and he says, it's zebra. If you don't have them, you don't get to decide how they're pronounced. And since most of the trees that bear this wonderfully delicious nut are in the South, we get to decide. So I just want to ask right now, how do you pronounce the word? Thank you very much. Let the record show that pecan is the correct pronunciation of the nut. We have them in Texas. We have them in Houston. My dad, 6 months before I was born, they bought the little house that I grew up in, 11 square foot, 1 bathroom in Athan, Oklahoma. And my dad went out on the creeks, the banks of Bird Creek there, and he dug up a little pecan tree sapling. And he nurtured it, fertilized it, watered it, and it towered over the entire house when they sold it about 7 years ago. And every year it was the native pecan. They're small and hard-shelled, but so sweet. He would just gather them in 5-gallon buckets, and in the winter he would sit watching his stories and his programs and his sports with his little pecan cracker and pull them out, and I would get a gallon bag of pecans from that tree as my Christmas present from my dad that was filled with his love. And I still have some left. I don't think they're any good, but I can't throw them away. I've got about that much left. My dad died 6 years ago. The tree and the nut existed long before there were people, and people to get upset about how a word is pronounced or what it's supposed to be called. That tree doesn't care what you call it. It's just going to do its best to thrive and survive and put forth its seeds so the next generation will have a chance. That's life. And there's nothing wrong here. And I tell this story and use this because I just realize for me it's an example of how easily I can fall into division, how easily I can fall into us and them, how easily I can go into right and wrong. Pecan, my goodness. I am filled with judgment right now. It is silly, but we do it all the time. Wrongly. Because before there were people making up the ideas of these right and wrong ways of everything, there was the life of God just being its glorious and wondrous self for all eternity. And we come along and we start judging it. And we otherize people. I know that we do have to stand up for what is right and true and what our heart is telling us to stand up for. So we do actually teach about a spiritually principled activism in this community. We're supposed to take part in the life of the community and the world to help shape it in its evolution. We're supposed to do that. But particularly in our two-party system, we tend to go us and them, right and wrong, whoever your us is and whoever their them is. And it's a trap, because then they become the other. And from the other, it is a short distance from otherizing to dehumanizing. And when you dehumanize, you get 9/11s in the world. You get Nazi Holocausts in the world. Do you hear me? This teaching of oneness is hard. And it breaks my heart again and again. But I'm committed to seeing the world and humanity as one. As hard as it is, I'm committed to it because I know where it will lead us in evolution. And how grateful I am to be a part of a community that says, let's do this together. Let's hold each other's hands as we remind each other of the simplicity and the seemingly impossible task of seeing God everywhere. That's what we're here to do. The Gospel of Luke, chapter 10, verse 25. And on one occasion, an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. Teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life? What is written in the law? He replied, how do you read it? The expert in the law said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength and your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. Jesus replied, you have answered correctly. Do this, and you will live. But the expert in the law wanted to justify himself, so he asked Jesus, and who is my neighbor? And Jesus replied, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be coming by, and when he saw the man, he passed to the other side. So too, a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on olive oil and wine. Then put the man on his own donkey, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii, and he gave them to the innkeeper. Look after him, he said, and when I return, I will reimburse you for any added expense. Jesus turned to the expert in the law and said, which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of the robbers? The expert said, the one who had mercy on him. And Jesus said, go and do likewise. If Jesus were telling this story today to the Democratic National Convention, he would have told the story of the Republican who crossed the street to give aid and comfort to the man who was needed. If he were giving this to a conservative religious group, he might say, the good gay person is the one who crossed the street to offer aid. When Jesus said the Samaritan, it was like a slap in the face to his righteous Jewish audience. They were the lowliest of the low, the ones who were most outcast, the ones who were most separate from God. And our beautiful teacher, Jesus, said, no. No. This belief you have about others, it's not true. We now have Good Samaritan hospitals. For us, it's a good word, but to them it would have been almost like a cuss word, just full of venom. They are the awful people. And so what I ask us today is, who are those people in your own mind and heart? Come on, you know you have them. And I hate to admit it, but I still do. There are people I still struggle when I hear that word or see that face. Something in me is like, not you. No. We're all one except for that one. We're all one. From the Native American tradition, I don't remember which tribe or which elder said this, but said this: they drew a circle to keep me out. So I drew a larger circle to include us all. In A Course in Miracles, there's a teaching on the circle of atonement. And the teaching is this, that the moment, I'm sorry I didn't get the quote because I didn't know I was going to say it. And I know, Gary, I told you 12 o'clock I was going to wrap it up, and here I am. I'm wrapping up. Just a second. The moment that we judge another person, we take ourselves out of the circle of atonement at one-ment. You get it? That's what Jesus was talking about. You judge and you're judged because you have taken yourself out of this living from our oneness as we value so highly here. So you're mad at me for giving you such a hard teaching? What I invite you to do is even the places where you probably got your list, I don't know, is it this long? I don't know how long that list is, but can you just begin to soften the edges of your heart? Can you just begin to go, well, maybe they just don't know yet. Maybe, and here's the last thing, I really am going to go to prayer after this. I had some really dark moments in my life where I did things I was not proud of, where I had moments of such awkwardness and I just didn't know. And there are people who saw me and that's who they think I am today. That's who they think I am. They haven't been with me on this journey of my healing and transformation. And so if nothing else, when you see someone being ugly, when you see someone who doesn't know that they're supposed to be living from their oneness, and Lord, there are a lot of people that don't know that. When you see that, can you just maybe go, I'm only seeing one part of their life, one part of their journey. And here's the big truth, this journey takes eternity beyond this lifetime. Let's do it together while we're here. Join me in this community of faith and transformation. We've got big work ahead of us at Unity of Houston. It's not all mine to do. We do it together. Pray with me now. In this moment, remembering the truth that there is only one life, the life of God, eternal, perfect, filled with love and light, that is revealing itself as the very experience of humanity. And we are at that green and growing edge of God's own becoming. We are human beings who have stepped into our yes. We have stepped into our willingness to heal, to let the light shine from us a little more clearly, a little more brightly. And so, God, we say, show us where we must let go of judgment and unforgiveness. Show us where we must open and stretch a little more into this consciousness of oneness. Reveal your truth in our lives that we may live your life into our families, into our cities, into our nation, and into our beloved Unity of Houston. Show me, God, how to lead. Show me where I must let go of my idea and step into something bigger. We trust that what is happening here is nothing but the life of God. And so we willfully and willingly acknowledge that this is good, what is happening. And we say yes to it and let the flow of God move through us, rising, lifting us on our journey of eternal becoming. We call it good and very good, and so it is. Amen. If no one has told you today that they love you and that you are worthy, whole, and perfect and beautiful, I love you. God bless you.
Thank you for watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.